Hey, this is Shel Mackert. Today I'm interviewing Ken Kapitsky on how he makes buggies and sleighs. So let's go take a look at Ken's Wacky workshop. People didn't always travel by cars. In the early 1900s, carriages were the way to get around. For over 37 years, Ken has worked on restoring carriages and sleighs in this very workshop. Here's Ken's latest project that will soon be a full working sleigh.
They're in pretty good shape.
Later I interviewed Ken and asked him on his knowledge on horse-drawn vehicles.
I'm just in the process of replacing the side.
So what got you interested in restoring and building horse-drawn sleighs and carriages?
Well, I've always liked horses, and I've always liked woodworking, and I've always liked history. And I've been quite interested in transportation. So I guess the whole thing became natural. Many years ago, when I was young and poor, I decided that I would like to have a carriage or a sleigh. And so I found an old beat-up one for $40 and fixed it up and found out that I enjoyed really fixing them up. So one thing led to another, and I have probably worked on between 150 and 200 ever since. So that was kind of how it got started.
Where do you find vehicles to work on, and what kind of parts do you look for in the vehicles?
Okay, a little later on we'll probably see some of the vehicles. Almost all the vehicles that I have, that I've kept, that I've restored, come from the eastern part of the country. And most of them have come from, in an unrestored condition, from various carriage dealers. There never was that many very nice carriages in this part of the country. And the few that were have long since either been disappeared or have been sold. What do I look for in a carriage or a sleigh? First of all, I like to have them be somewhat unusual. Unusual gets pretty complicated, and we won't get into that. But the other thing we like to see is to have them basically be complete as far as the metalwork goes. Generally speaking, the wood, the upholstery, some of those things are quite easy to repair. However, if you get into some of the essential metal castings, and if they're missing, some of them are extremely hard to duplicate. So that's what I look for, something that's unusual and something that's quite complete as far as the metal goes.
So when did they stop making buggies, and what happened to those companies that used to make them?
Okay, the carriage industry was somewhat interesting. It evolved in the 1800s. Prior to 1800, there was very few vehicles that we would recognize today. By the time we get into the late 1800s, there were a lot of manufacturers. One of the very largest was the Studebaker Corporation. And you may have heard of Studebaker cars, which probably haven't been made for about 40 years. Studebaker got its start about 1850, making wagons. They specialized in making wagons. By the time the Civil War came in the early 1860s, they were perhaps the largest supplier of wagons for the Union Army. After the war was over, they went into the manufacture of regular farm wagons, probably their specialty. If you see any of the old wagon trains that they had, or the heading out west, the prairie schooners, those were probably Studebakers.
Well, I hope you learned a little something about horse carriages today. I know I did. This is Shel Mackert, signing off.